Good night, Belizeans at home and abroad. This is the Belizean Affairs Show number 113 for Friday, 8th of March, 2024. My name is Leonard, Brackett, and I am one of the panelists on this particular program, and I will also be your chairman for tonight, being Friday. I'm the chairman of the Friday programs, and we deal mostly with constitutional, legal, and case law matters, and sometimes we get into the political issues as well. I'll follow the same format as we have always done with our regular programming, and I'll go ahead and offer a short word of prayer, after which I'll do a short reading from Proverbs. Divine loving Father, we thank you for this privilege to come before thy presence once more, to be able to express our gratitude to you for having given us the possibilities of life and still be alive among our family members, friends, and loved ones, and the rest of humanity. We pray that thou mayest bless our family members and friends, wheresoever they are, thou knowest them by name and number. Please continue to guide and protect and bless our country of Belize, its people and its leadership. And please continue to guide and protect and bless this country of the United States of America, as well as its leadership and its people, and also the rest of humanity, especially those people who are in harm's way, and those who need food, clothes, shelter. Please continue to abide with us, now and always. We pray for Christ's sake. Amen. Thank you very much for indulging us in the formats of our program and for listening to our programs, whether it be now or later on at your convenience. Uh, I'll read Proverbs chapter 28, and I'll read just a few verses from it. It starts as follows. Verse 1. The wicked flee when no man pursueth, but the righteous are bold as a lion. For the transgressions of the land many are many are the princes thereof, but by a man of understanding and knowledge the state thereof shall be prolonged. A poor man that oppresseth the poor is like a sweeping rain, which leaveth no food. They that forsake the law praise the wicked, but such as keep the law contend with them. Evil men understand not judgment, but they that seek the Lord understand all things. Better is the poor that walketh in his uprightness than he that is perverse in his ways, though he be rich. Thank you very much for coming to the Belizean Affairs show tonight. We hope that we may present something that may accrue to the benefit and well-being of our people and country. Uh, we may have a guest sometime during the course of the program. The person is right now in the middle of traffic, and in some of these cities here in the United States, when the evening traffic, when you get caught up in the evening traffic, if there are no accidents, you might be able to make it home safely, expeditiously as well. But when there's traffic or there's accidents or any other activities going on, sometimes you get prolonged. Nevertheless, we will delve into our program, which is one of our backup program per se. Uh, Quickly, before we go into the rest of the program, I just want to touch on a little bit of the haranguing that took place yesterday in terms of the electioneering. It's part of our democracy and part of our process. And as a result, the people had an opportunity to speak by means of their own votes to affirm or disaffirm the various political individuals or parties. We all by now may know that the PUP came out on top, victorious in out of the 9 municipalities. The only one that they did not took was Santa Elena and San Ignacio, but they still had someone from their party elected as well as one of the councillors. The UDP got wiped out in all the other constituents. So all we can say is that the people spoke and we have the results that we have. There may be quite a bit of variances or reasons or rationale for what happening to have happened. And after the fact, making excuses isn't going to cut it. We got to live with the outcome because that's the result of our democracy. But in doing a post-mortem of the election itself and the activities leading up to the election and the hopefulness that people have in terms of what's to come after the election, I want to make some stipulations. First and foremost, I want to deal with some numbers. It is generally understood that the People's United Party, the Prime Minister and government of the day, allocated some $50 million to do infrastructure and community work during the last days before the election so that their prospective candidates and their party would appear to be shining and working on behalf of the people and giving the people adequate and proper governance. Of course, we all know that's a sleight of hand, but that's not the only point I want to bring up about that $50 million. Before that $50 million was expended, and we have gotten all the infrastructure work and all the goodies out of the kitty, for which we are actually happy because it is our money, taxpayers' money. By the way, it's not the People's United Party coffers' money, nor is it the Prime Minister's personal funding or any of the other ministers or any of the other councillors or mayors or anybody's personal funding. Before the election, we also remember hearing the Minister of Infrastructure Development, Mr. Espat, complaining or citing to the Prime Minister that if he could not get some more money to do additional work, it was likely that the party would have lost. So from that, we can tell that the $300 or so million that went through his hands for infrastructure work, part of it had been targeted for electioneering purposes as well. So we can say we had $50+ million from the government coffers, in addition to the standard bearers for the different standard bearers and elected House of Representative members were also given little stipends for their constituencies. That money also went into electioneering. So we now know that we're talking about more than $50 million, as well as the People's United Party of their own financing that they acquire during the regular political campaigning process, were able to expend somewhere between $8 and $9.5 million throughout the whole country, because every division in the country got involved, even though some of them were not part of the tongue board election proper. But each district constituents pooled their resources together, and even though it was not a general election, it is just a harbinger of things to come for the next general election, which is not too far around the corner. I can say to you that of all those millions that the PUP party spent to hoodwink the general public into believing that something was gotten out of their administration, by the way, finally, it was not nearly as much as should have been done for the whole 3 years and plus that they've been in office. But it worked. And it didn't have to be. They could have just as well continued piling up the money in Mr. Ashcroft's hands instead of giving us any services. So kudos to them for giving us a little bit of services. We wish they had done a lot more of that. And we wish that they had not given that much amount of money to Mr. Ashcroft and should have, under proper management or good governance, would have kept back some of that money and applied it to the needs of the country and to move the country forward. Instead, we now have another 5-year debt hanging over our head that for the next 5 years, whoever is in government, whether it's the same PUP government right now that gets re-elected or a new government that comes in later on or whatever the case might be, hopeful thinking on the part of some, by the way, we still owe Mr. Ashcroft, or we still have a commitment with Mr. Ashcroft over what the Prime Minister said, settling all accounts. And I'm putting up my fingers and wiggling them as in quotation word. That is to say, he promised that he was settling all accounts with this gentleman. And we were hoping that this gentleman would just eventually get out of our head and out of our governance affairs. But yet now we know that for the next 5 years, we got to come up with twice as much money as the man was making from the port to give him every year. He was getting like 13 to $14 million every year when he was controlling our port under receivership status. Now that we so-called, according to the Prime Minister, bought it back, I don't know who will buy back their own property and pay somebody an exorbitant price to give them back what is duly theirs. That didn't square with me when they came up with that kind of language. The idea of repossessing back or getting back the port under free final control or total control was a good idea. But the amount of money when they settle for all outstanding accounts, as of today date, we're having this discussion, and they have not provided us with the details of all those accounts. And according to the laws and the disclosure laws of the country, the public's business is to be made public, and we're supposed to know what all those accounts were that were settled and how much in each instance. But instead of settling and get back report for the $38 million when Mr. Spot owe Mr. Ashcroft, we will now end up with the PM Mr. Ashcroft over 300, almost $400 million. I don't understand what kind of negotiate a settlement with somebody where you owe 30-something million for, and you end up to settle with them the 300 to 400 million. That doesn't square in my mind, and I don't know how much people who never gone to the ABC would accept that as being a viable settlement. So for the next 5 years, you're going to give the man $25 million a year. You have to find a way to come up with that $25 million. in order to honor that dastardly agreement that was made and that we now have to live with. I want to say, as far as I'm concerned, we haven't seen the last of Mr. Ashcroft yet. As I told you guys, when this political thing came up, we were going to be sued and we were going to lose hundreds of millions of dollars. Okay, we so-called, according to when I say again, in quotation mark, settled with Mr. Ashcroft. Even though for the next 5 years, we still have to pay him $25 million per year. We haven't settled with Mr. Feinstein yet from the other port. Now he has documents ready to file his case for more hundreds of millions of dollars. And if Mr. Ashcroft's settlement, which was a subordinate settlement, by the way, they paid him off so that the egg on the government face did not get to be seen by the public through a lawsuit and a case answerable by the government and publicly put out there through the legal process. Mr. Feinstein is now looking for $188 million to settle his part of the case, which, if Mr. Ashcroft had gone to court, he would have won. And for all intents and purposes, he probably would have won more than what we gave him. Mr. Feinstein is looking to have either a settlement on his behalf or he's going to court to make sure he gets his part of the pie. Just like how the government was able to settle with Mr. Ashcroft. The problem is that Mr. Ashcroft have the government and the people of Belize as a country over a barrel. Unlike Mr. Feinstein, he don't wield that kind of power. But he also have his rights under the Constitution, and he's aggrieved because of the way the government treated him and his business, and very likely can prevail in court, and we won't have to come up with another $188 million to settle with him, because that's what he's asking for. Now, mind you, when these people ask for whatever they ask for, that means that if you're willing to settle with them, they don't take less, or they can't come around to accepting less. The idea is that they want to be punitive towards the government or towards the people for having obstructed their business operations and their potential business success. But the Prime Minister and the cabinet that we have and the government that we currently have in place doesn't care about those kind of mechanics. Because all they will do is as we know them to do, which is dip in the public coffers, disgorge the public of the assets that they need to run the government adequately enough to give the services that the public needs, and settle with these people. And then they don't have money to pay the teachers, they don't have money to pay the civil service or the wage bill, and they don't have money to buy the things and provide the services where the country needs. So today, in the House, they read part of what will be or become the new budget for the next year starting April 1st. The idea is that they can't wait to have that budget authorized so they can start spending the money out of that budget as well, to catch up on some of the things that they don't have money on hand for to do on behalf of the public and on behalf of the country. And they have came to the House in too many occasions recently to get supplemental budgets for the current budget year. and the year not finished yet. I can sit here as I am right now, and I can tell you, the Belizean public at home and abroad, that specific budget that is being contemplated has a major shortfall of many millions of dollars. And as usual, we will look into the Taiwanese to help plow up some of it and other sources and other places. But at the end of the day, that same budget, if it gets passed in the House and get accepted, which 98% of the possibility exists that it will, we will have to come up with additional money to make that budget work. And we will have to have additional supplementary expenditures to make sure the numbers bear out the planning that they are doing and the things that they want to achieve. Because those things cannot be paid with IOU. Those things have to be paid through the budgetary process and the consolidated funding mechanisms. And if the money is not there, we have to borrow it from somewhere, or we have to go beg for it from somewhere else. But these guys don't care, because it's not like their money going to backstop the budget, or their money going to help defray the expenses then when they put the country through by messing around with all these litigations and trying to resurrect the dead horse portico. Then they try to breathe breath of life into the thing to bring them back alive after they don't stink all the way down to hell. Because that's what they're spending their time working on in cabinet and discussing in the cabinet. Not too long from now, you'll hear what their decision is on the political issue, for which they have spent hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, when it should not have been like that. Because we, the government of Belize, have not a penny ownership or control in Portico, except some of the government officials, them, as I said before, whose baby it is, and others who are being suborned through the process. Also, they are pushing this bogus law that they made the other day. They made some amendment to it because some of the senators complain about some of the wordings. But the end objective is one and the same: to try and criminalize people like myself and others who are on our platform and other platforms, who are taking the government to task for their shortcomings and their mismanagement. And they don't want us to be telling the public what they're doing that is wrong. So they're going to try to put stones and obstacles in our way to try and stop us from being able to expose their devious and criminal conduct, so that nobody can ask them for accountability. They're taking the very same powers we entrusted to them and using it against us, violating our constitution. The constitution says that they shall not make any such laws to bother with people's communication to each other, or with each other, or to any group of people, or to stop us from being able to complain to them, the government of our country, about the wrongs that they're doing that's causing all of us harm. No, they're already getting easy going as government officials and as ministers, but that's not good enough for them. They want to make it in such a way that is difficult for us and maybe criminal for us to request that they do the right thing and point out the wrong things that they're doing. So now today they were discussing again in the House this law that they were trying to pass the other day, that some of the senators they objected to. So they changed a few words here and there and come back again with only sleight of hand and pretend that, well, the few words that they changed should make the difference, and therefore now the senators then should go along with the program, vote for it, put it in place so that they can start victimizing the people that they don't like criticizing them. I have news for them. as far as I'm concerned, the government will end up losing a lot of money again because of their hard-headed and craziness. They insist in making these bogus laws and putting them on the book only to be ruled as unconstitutional and struck down. But I'll explain to you behind the scene what these jackals do. Even for those who end up in court under these adverse conditions and who may be able to prevail, by the time they get to the point of prevailing, they have lost a lot of income, a lot of money, and they have had to fight against the government deep pocket. And these jackals and hyenas and vultures and vampires, they go ahead and leave these laws on the book, hoping that they can use it to silence or to silence their nemesis or their adversaries, or to intimidate them with those laws. And even after those laws are ruled as unconstitutional, they don't do the right thing as a government to take it out of the constitution and or out of the law book. They go back and they try to use it again in other situations and pretend that they didn't heard the first instance where it was ruled as unconstitutional and illegal and null and void. And each administration learned from the previous administration, and both administration and the PUP and UDP try to operate with the same cynical and devious intent to bastardize with constitution and with laws and to oppress the people who give them the power to govern. Now, they made a law the other day. They went back and they changed the law again. Then they come back and they want to change it again. All just to get themselves included under that category of civil servants, people or government officials or personnel that are now going to be protected with enhanced criminal status against people who speak to them, offend them, or threaten them, or all kind of stuff. We have laws against threatening, you know. You could go to jail right now just for threatening somebody. They never had to come up with this law and try to make this law the way they're try to make it right now, which when it goes to court will be ruled as unconstitutional. But in the meantime, until it gets to court, they want to silence a lot of people and victimize a lot of people. These people need to do the right thing on behalf of our country. The fact that they can bamboozle their way through the process of getting the people to elect them to office doesn't mean that they should violate the trust of the people, misuse and abuse their position, and the very people who elect them to office. Because once those bastardized laws goes on the book, any and everybody in the country are equal under the law and are subject to being caught up with some of those same laws. The government have attorneys generals and other legal personnel that they can use who are on a daily pay schedule to fight cases on behalf of the government. But the average Joe Blow, me and you out there, we don't got no retained lawyers. We got to go find money and find one lawyer that is willing to take our case and not throw our case and hopefully win our case for us. If we can survive all the different appeals and turnaround and the mechanics of the legal system, which is onerous at the least, and I would say even at the worst, is criminal unto itself in many aspects. Because I'll point out to you, for example, why should the Attorney General be put in a position where he has to decide who the DPP should prosecute or not prosecute? That's two different offices, two different legal functions, and two different institutions. Each of them have their own powers vested onto them. It is not for the Attorney General to figure out who the government should prosecute and not prosecute. That's the purview of the DPP. The Attorney General is to defend on behalf of the government any potential litigation. The Attorney General is not there to be running after no civilians and getting involved in personal beef between civilians. That's the purview of the DPP and the police and the courts. But again, the position of Attorney General is a high position and a high status in terms of the legal structures of our country. Therefore, there's a penchant on behalf of some of these individuals, especially people in the government, to try and curry favor among each other and to try and use the powers of governance on behalf of each other. Where is the issue dealt with by the Attorney General in terms of the minister from Outer Key that had this problem with the young lady? So long ago, it's like if they were hoping that the matter would go silent. Because the young lady is not in a position to go and take out lawsuit and or sponsor a lawsuit to be made whole or to give her justice. But they can play games as a cabal to protect each other and to avoid the litigation and avoid the condemnation that will accrue if this matter is taken to court. So then they pull all kind of shenanigans behind the scene. They stifle the process and refuse to move forward so as to let the system work. In other words, the system is only usable for some people, but not for others. The young man, Mr. Wojie, had this problem the other day. Long after the other one from Outer Key had this problem. But they quickly want to dispatch Mr. Wojie and his case so that he does not become a hindrance to their political prospects in the Pigstock division, where Mr. Wojie was trying to be a representative. So by putting his case first and hopefully get him convicted, if possible, or just the disbursement from going through the legal process, puts him on the back heel. And these guys are relishing in that type of behavior. Where is the law? I'm not saying that Mr. Wojie is supposed to be exculpated, by the way. I mean, don't get me wrong. If the man did something wrong, he ought to be held account. We are all equal under the law. If the gentleman out of key did something wrong, he should be held accountable as well. The young man Budna the other day was accused of insulting somebody and besmirching somebody. And the police commissioner put out an APB on the gentleman on behalf of another political entity or individual. That was like a favor. How you never gonna arrest Mr. The man from, I don't want to call the name. I like calling names, but in this case, I don't want to call the man name. The man from Outer Key. How the commissioner never gonna arrest him and lock him up or take him to the young lady and make the young lady scold her and do the same thing like where they do with Mr. Budna. Kaleka, put out the ABB, Kaleka, carry away the ones who the driver around in circles, carry on to the man where you offended and make the man get satisfaction out of the process. So even if you don't get no legal case, at least you feel all right that the young man was intimidated to the point where he may not attempt to do that again. So then Harlem pull the law, commit crimes under the color of law, because the last time I heard, or that I'm aware of, the police commissioner is the head lawman. That's why he carries that title, the police commissioner. He's also a lawyer. So he knows that the law of the country, the maximum law of the country, the Constitution, I believe, says under Cap 4, Part 3, Section, no, it's Part 2. Yeah, I think it's Part 2. I use Part 3. Part 2, Section 6, 1 says that we are all equal under the law. And nobody should be made a victim under the color of law. If somebody commits a crime, that should be dealt with through the legal process. Nobody should be using the law, authority of the law, the power of state, to go and commit any crimes under the color of law on behalf of nobody else, whether that person is their subordinate or whether that person is their superior. We are all equal under the law. Where is the effort to exercise equality under our legal system? They keep bastardizing our law. And the general public appears to be either indifferent, complacent, or accomplices to the process, or maybe just ignorant of the fact that these things are happening right under our nose. That's not me, so I don't care about it. Until when it becomes me and I start to care, then I want somebody else to care too. We are too damn selfish and self-centered. And so long as we keep going down that path, we could only get what is down that path. We can't go down one path and expect to get what's down the other path. If we are aiding and abetting criminal conduct on the part of politicians against civilians, and then allow those politicians to use the powers of state against those civilians again, it's like victimizing the civilians in too many ways. Now, these jackals that we have as leaders of the country are even stipulating that they want to get rid of the possibility of the Supreme Court having any judicial review on the bogus laws that they are creating, because they don't want their laws that they create, after they don't create it, for it to be ruled as illegal and unconstitutional and null and void. So now they go and they get not local Belizean people, of whom we have over 100 of them competent and capable to become judges in our country. They go and they bring in these foreign judges who are beholden to the government of the day, so that when any matters that comes from the government in front of these judges, they have to be ruling in terms of their best interest. That is, whether or not they get their contract renewed if they displease the government. We have had many instances like those before. Judge Conte, I could, in fact, I shouldn't name them because it's gratuitous to even talk about these gentlemen in their absence, and since they are not relevant in terms of what's going on right now, other than the fact that they made their ruling, and right now those rulings are being dismissed and abrogated. And there's nothing that they can do now because they're not sitting on the bench anymore. They're retired and gone. The fact is that we Belizean, unless we wake up and get on the ball, we will continue to have the same repetitious behavior from these politicians with the level of disdain and dismissiveness that they carry on with. And the more we keep re-electing them and empowering them, we should not be complaining about the outcome, because they have shown us their color, they have told us who they are, they have performed the way they want to perform, and when we complain, we have seen the outcome or their effort. That is to relate to us with a high degree of disdain and dismissiveness. They have the power. We gave them the power. So after they have the power, there's nothing that we could do about taking it back from them, unless we want to have referendums or unless we want to have um, recall, because there are measures. We have the referendum laws that we could put matters on the on the in the system to create referendums on some of these guys and some of these matters. But even with that, they try to bamboozle their way out of the last three potential referendums and also the recall. Then they come to us and tell us, "Oh, no, we are not flaunting the law. You know, it's just that we found it convenient to negotiate with Oceana and negotiate with the church on the marijuana stuff and make a promise to them and dispossess them of their rightful constitutional obligated, by the way, because once you meet the mandated threshold to trigger a referendum, that power lies then in the hands of the people, not in the government. So for the prime minister and the attorney general to come and tell us on TV in our face that no, they're not conflating, they're not abusing the law, but yes, they are abusing the law because there's no because, especially when the law says you shall. It's a mandamus. It's a requirement. Because we put you in a government, that means that you have the right to dispossess us of our rights. We never ceded those rights to you. The Constitution says that you have no law making authority to take away our constitutional rights. Those rights are vested in the people. But yet these guys act like it, well, they could care less what the Constitution says. They just go ahead and do what they want, and who's to stop them? And all the levers of powers and checkmates in the governance system yield to them and aid and abet them in their criminal contempt and behavior towards the public. I'd like to go to the part about the election in terms of why is it that the UDP lost and how come the PUP won. And not just won, but won so handily, and with such a massive victory. In the first place, let me go after my countrymen or voting people. Less than half of some of the people, some of the town board and city council elections turned out to vote. Less than half of the qualified voters them. Come on, Belizeans. And then you want to turn around and complain about the mismanagement and the malmanagement and bad management of governance affairs. Sit on a butt at home, the suck on the finger, and can't come out one day for participating in the checkmate or the check and balance processes for defending your own democracy. You're so hard up with time or for time, but yet you can spend so many hours per day on Facebook, TikTok, and all the other platforms there. But one day you can come out, come vote, and make that vote count in terms of what you're expressing as a total population or as the majority of the population. And out of those people that came out to vote, in some instances, less than half of the people them. In some other instances, a little over half. But of those that came out to vote, the party that won with less than 30% of the voting pool or the qualified voters. And they're the one that are authorized then to run the whole system on behalf of the other 60 odd, 70 odd percent that did not show up or did not vote for them. I wonder if I talk stupidness or the talk or setting where no go so, like where we like said I believe, or at the setting I'm saying things that the Belizean, some of the Belizean people doesn't understand, recognize. I don't think that's the case. We have 40 odd years of independence. And long before independence, we made a vote. And back then, people were a lot more conscientious with their responsibility for protecting and preserving their democracy. People used to take their time off from work and demand that the employers then give them time off for work. In fact, the government even made rules or laws, statutory instruments or whatever, to guarantee that people right to come out and vote should be honored by their employers. And yet, tell me half of the population of registered voters or eligible voters can't find the time that is free to them. Of course, remember, they're not like they're losing salary or they're losing job or there's something that they can't afford to make a difference. It's a process that determines what kind or quality or type of government or governance you want to have. And if you complain that you don't like what the president wants to do, and you don't want to come out and participate, you shouldn't be surprised then that 30% of the people they run the whole country, or they decide how the whole country get run. As for example, in general elections, you always have like 60 or 70% of the people turning out to vote. What happened to the other 30 or 40% when they turn out? What is their concern? What is so important to them? What takes that priority that they can't perform their civic duties on behalf of their own patrimony? Do they not realize that there are countries where people don't get a chance to vote? In fact, there are countries where people can't open up their mouth and say nothing, much less have an opportunity to go out and vote. In Russia, you could go out and vote, but in Russia, you can't open up your mouth and talk and say nothing about Mr. Putin. Same thing with China. You can't go talk and ask Mr. Xi to do nothing to serve your interests, even though they are working on behalf of the people. Now, look at the difference. In China, they say everything is about the people, and they work and perform as if everything is about the people. Why? Because the system has allowed itself to grow to such a point where they can't thief everything or thief more than what they need to make use of. So they don't mind spending the people and money upon the people and develop their country. But for we country so small and we have so much of a limit of whatever we have, that when the man and thief and leave it at this and leave it at that, everybody know that he get it. He never work for it or not part of a paycheck. The lifestyle when they live, the things then what they do. Somebody go in a politics, like I said, with not even 2 nickels in their back pocket for rub. And if they become successful at winning the election, and they also become successful at being maybe a part of the cabinet and then hold on portfolio, most of them come out as millionaires and in some instances multimillionaires. While do the people who get that kind of power make them become rich overnight? Sit down home, suck your finger, like what a lot of you do right now that believes. One day after the election, that $50 when they give don't get spent. That beer, couple of beer when they give you, don't get drink and wash out of the body already. The little plate of food when they give you that one day, the little barbecue or whatever, it done gone too. Today, one day after election, how much better off any of you are if you never be the one never get $1,000 and more. Well, at least today maybe I still have a little pittance of the $1,000 left. We could do something else with. But most people then subordinate for 50, 100, 150, 200, 300, 400, 500. A few get 1,000 and others get maybe only 10,000, depending on who that individual is. If they're one of the campaign worker, for the last 6 weeks, at least they make 6 weeks salary at maybe only $200 a week. 6 times 2 is how much? $1,200. And those people went out in sun hot, in rain, in whatever circumstance, and they worked their heart out for their party. So they could get a 6 week salary, which is about $1,200 Belize. That can't pay their house rent for a year. That can't feed themselves and their picnic for a year. That can't pay their school fees. That can't, So on the cheap, where they collect a few pennies here and a few pennies there from these politicians, and we make them millionaire. And when they become big millionaires and so on, and they start riding in an SUV, they don't stop and hail. At least Mr. Price used to stop and hail. Then Baliano ideas, they don't come like that. They don't roll like that. They are totally different kind of animal. They pay you for your vote. Once you vote for them, the transaction is done. They don't owe you nothing else. Then take your power and then instead of use it to help you make a country move forward so that you could be successful either as an entrepreneur or as an employee or as whatever. They don't worry you, they never got you in a mind. Today, one day after after the Tongbona City Council election, today, those people that were getting a least salary for the 6 weeks, now got one salary to get next week, or the week after, or the week after. If you made work for the government, or you made work for some private employee, you got your salary coming in. But don't forget, whatever extra money you make right now, it not last you too long. You know why? The government does not have anywhere to make money. It does not have anywhere to create revenue for the government. Other than the port where we just get back, and even that right now, then they freeze by putting in private individuals to run it at high salaries. So basically, they are milk that too. And when that fails, they turn around and privatize it again. Because that will be the recommendation from the IMF. If the government have assets that could be sold, sell. Not come to the IMF, they will beg for no money to help the country. That's how they roll. That's what got us into the first problem under Mr. Musa. In 2000, I sat in the Love FM radio station on a broadcast with Mr. Nouri Mohammed and pointed out to him that I had just been in touch with Mr. Musa, making some economic recommendation to Mr. Musa. And I was hoping that the man would implement them so that he would be able to, as the new prime minister, do some things for the country and he derive the benefit from the successes of his administration. That discussion is still on tape. One of these days I may play it. For those who don't know, because there's so much that's swept under the rug of history that most people don't know. It's a pity. When Mr. Briceño first got into office on this term, he won in November, I think it was November 28th of 2020. Before a month was up, early December, I think it was December 9th, thereabout, I sent him a letter pointing out to him that his budget, like the one when I read today, back then that he was going to be reading when the time came, would have been short of about 140 million. No, about $240 million was the number. Somewhere on the internet, that letter is circulating. So for those who have the chance to see, check it out. Get back to me and tell me I was talking stupidness. Okay. Nevertheless, he won the election in November. Before a month was up, before 30 days was up, I sent him a letter pointing out to him that his budget would have been short $240 million. The man never even had the decency to reply or acknowledge receipt of the letter. In that letter, I also told him where he would go and get $250 million easily. $250 million easily, which would have covered the 240 that his budget would have shown him. He waited until he had to present his budget, read the budget in the House like he did today. Back then, 3+ years ago now, only to tell the public that he was short of $240 million. Now, I don't tell him I'm short of 240, you know. And I don't tell him if he go get 250. He dismissed that and he went about doing his own thing. That is, grab the teachers then by the neck and squeeze them, take away 10% of their salary, and all the other civil servants them. The man never had to do that. But why do that? I'm telling you now. That they may help kick out the Musa administration when he was deputy prime minister. And you never forget that. So the first chance they get to get back in the government, they go and take their revenge out of the civil service. Show them who is boss. And mind you, at that time, we were still going through COVID, you know. A lot of people know me, they go to work, the economy was stagnant. A lot of kids will go to school with them teachers, then take their salary and help buy things to help some of them kids where their parents not have it. With that 10% salary deduction, some of them teachers couldn't handle it. So they had to stop. So what happened? More people under the poverty index situation continue suffering more. And right away, they cut the pantry program, by the way. That's how dastardly and treacherous these people are. Then they kind of smile and laughing on the faces today to make on vote for them again. And they are going to do the same thing in a year and a half, you know. When the general election is due, they come back with the same shenanigans, with the same smile on their face, and with the same $50 offer, one plate of food, and one few beer. And the people want to drink up the beer, and they wave their flag and have fun. And the politicians then ride off into the sunset to the bank. Well, I don't mean a regular bank, you know. I mean the Belize treasury that are for them piggy bank. That are when they haul out hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars for Mr. Ashcroft and tens of millions for themselves. Remember what the current Prime Minister, Mr. Belizean, told his former boss, the previous Prime Minister, Mr. Musa? Bring back some of the money we won't care. Now, how dare Mr. Belizean to talk to his boss? He, as Deputy Prime Minister, to talk to his Prime Minister in that kind of language. And in public, by the way. Okay? You know why? I had just given him information during the G7 for them to get to find out how treacherous Mr. Musa and Mr. Fonseca, we used to call him Funds Taker. We never call the man by the correct name, Fonseca. We call him Funds Taker. Because the man had with government treasury, they haul out money, they send go invest at Japan, they send go invest at Montevideo, they send go invest at Cayman, they send at Miami, the man they send money to Houston, the man they send money to all over the world, out of we treasury, under the guise of paying for equipment and services that we country never ever received. The money went into foreign accounts. We never saw that money or the benefits of that money. In fact, there was a case when we had money take out, put into private hospital under government sponsorship. That as of today date, the hospital is private. They make money, but we Belizean people can't get no service out of that hospital. And the hospital is being maintained better than for public hospital. That's the kind of treacherous people we're dealing with. They are not about the general populace. They want to give you that $50, you know. You have to prove that you did vote according to the requirements, you know. You won't have to meet all the requirements. But when you don't put that vote and they don't get elected, they don't have no requirements to meet and just stiff up their lip when they see you and pretend that they don't know you anymore because you vote for them because they don't buy you. How Belize is going to ever get to change under those kind of circumstances, I don't know. Because we have 68% poverty. So these camps are always going to have a wide pool of people that they can offer $50 for them vote for. And some people take it because they're in dire straits. They need it. They don't think that they sell their whole patrimony when they sell and vote for $50 or $100 or $1,000 or whatever amount they give them. Because the middle class people them and the richer people they give more, you know. In fact, they not only give them money, they offer some of them land or business opportunities or all kind of thing in order to suborn and get them to vote and get the power. Once they aggregate or accrue that power onto themselves, like I said, when they get in that vehicle and drive past you, they don't know you. When election time come around, they come wear their house with their vehicle, come look for you. Some people might say I talk stupidness or I try to be petty. No, I'm just repeating or restating. I'm not even stating it because I don't mean say so. I'm restating the obvious and the long practices. I've been involved in Belizean politics 60 years now, plus, as a matter of fact. So I know the talk through the top of my head, or I know the talk over my head, or say something like I always say, when I go so. Anytime I open my mouth and I tell you that because I want you to believe me, and I don't want you to find out that I lie to you, because then I'm going to have a harder time to make you believe anything else what I say after that. I always want you to take what I say, carry it to the public, to the bank of public affairs, or to the bank of credibility, and make sure you get a correct change after you don't use it. Credibility is one of the most valuable coin in the realms of communication. So I know I open my mouth and destroy my credibility on nothing. And if I don't know something about something, I'll keep my mouth shut. The problem with me is that I like to talk too much. And sometimes I say some things where I shouldn't have to say. But I say it because keeping it in my head is of no benefit to anybody. For right now, I would just like to ask if you bear with me for a second. I want to pull up something here that I want to read. Just give me a few seconds. Okay. I guess I gotta go in a different direction to find what I need. Okay, before I read that one, I have something else. Another one I want to read. I read this one right now. Oh, wait. Let's see. Oh, I know. Bad business. Oh, man. Okay. Is that the other one? Okay, I got it now. Yeah. Okay. I keep writing these little articles, sometimes as a response to other people's inquiries, and sometimes just sort of for the hell of it, just to put the ideas on paper or put my thoughts on paper. Since I'm tending to get a little older now and the little gray hair on my head, they weigh me down. I make they slow me down a little bit. And as a result, you know, sometimes I don't remember things as much as I used to when I was younger, you know. So I try to write down some thoughts sometime so that I could regurgitate them the same way they came to me originally. But in this case, I also want to read this new one. I got two anyway I want to read. I read them back to back. But I read the first one. The first one is very short. On February 21st, I wrote this one. It says, too many Belizeans are more interested in the well-being of protection and in the well-being and protection of treasonous politicians and treacherous parties than in the well-being and protection of their patrimony beliefs. But I like people to kind of think back on that one and maybe remember the wording and put it into context and reflect on it as to their own personal perspective or how they want to say that same thing or how they want to interpret that same thing or how they want to relate to that same thing. And just for the hell of it, I'm going to read it all over again because it's short, right? Too many Belizeans are more interested in the well-being and protection of treasonous politicians and treacherous parties than they're interested in the well-being and protection of their own patrimony and country beliefs. Make that one sink in while I pull up the next one. The next one is a little bit longer. We still have enough time. Uh, let me see. Let's pull this one up quickly. Okay. All right. Let me see. I got it. Okay. There it is. This one is, like I said, a little longer than the last one. Not very much, not much more longer. It's about twice the length in terms of wordings, verbiage. Just sometimes I do little musings. I just sit and start reminisce and start brainstorming and think about certain things and sometimes like I'm just going through an emotional state of being stressed out to realize that better could be had. And for whatever the reason, unfortunately, we just have to be settling for bad, worse, and wasara. Like we say in a Creole, among kids when we were younger, right? Like that, but worse and wasara. But in this case, this is one situation where I was just musing, I was just, brainstorming. The following comments were made by Leonard Brackett on a Facebook post by the title of Polls, which is a post that we created initially to take a poll of people to see what people were thinking about um, the Portico issue, to get a consensus of Belizeans at home and abroad as to what they thought about it, what they understood, and what questions they may have wanted to have answered. Nevertheless, I'll just proceed. I named this particular one an incessant, unenviable voluntary task, open bracket, for a cause or patrimony greater than self, close bracket. I said, educate, educate, and educate is part of the agenda and the reason for creating this post and the writing of hundreds of articles and commentaries and opinions and the sponsoring and producing of Belizean Affairs show, which is what we're broadcasting right now, with a total of 112 shows so far, now being 113. Starting on Mondays, on Wednesdays, and on Fridays at 7:30 p.m. Belize time on Facebook and YouTube, with Belizean panelists Leonard Brackett, myself, and Mr. Gregory Brackett, and Mr. Roody Wade. And in some instances, we bring in other panelists as special guests. There are many people who ask the question, why is it that we don't respond to on our show in an interactive basis or way with the people who visit our show and who makes comments? And I have not answered that question adequately enough, I believe. So therefore, I'll take another stab here in public to see if I can answer it to the satisfaction of some of the people who asked those questions. First of all, the purpose of this show, as I stipulated above, educate, educate, educate. We don't think that we need to be arguing back and forward with people of different opinions than ourselves, because to do that is just bantering and playing games, hoping to win all debates or all possible discussions, while the essence of the discussion, in many instances, could become personal and derogatory and could be used for mischief. When we started this particular program, it was our intention to do what we saw was not being done by the government. That is, the government was trying to undo our present constitution without the people to know what's in the present constitution. And they wanted to undo the present constitution in favor of a new constitution, which the people would not have enough time to figure out and know what's in the new constitution. They never know what's in the old constitution after 40 years of independence. How in a few months' time they're supposed to get to learn and know what is in that same constitution now, to be able to have a lucid or comprehensive enough awareness so that they can decide and make an educated guess or statement as regards to what they want out of their constitution and what they want to put in or keep. So our intention then was to educate, educate, educate. We started out with case laws on Fridays. We were reviewing some cases that Supreme Court judges, Belize Supreme Court judges, and Belize Appellate Court judges, and the final Caribbean Court of Justice, to whom we are delegated all final justice prerogatives, had made rulings in certain cases. And we wanted to educate the people about what the meaning of those cases were and how they affect us as Belizeans. And we wanted to point out that the government was, for all intents and purposes, misbehaving in regards to fulfilling their constitutional obligation to the people. We wanted to call them to task and to show the people where they were falling short. In other words, we wanted to educate the people. We wanted to do what the Constitution Reform Commission was falling short on doing. Why? Because they spent so many months trying to get their act together. Time was running. And if people never know what they in the Constitution for so 40 odd years, we need to get on the ball and try to expose them a little bit more so that they could know whether they say yes or no to, or whether they vote on when time comes for a referendum to change the Constitution, which is what these people were after. We don't want to come to the people and tell the people, well, yes or no, maybe so. Okay, here's a list that you can vote and say, yes, you want to change your Constitution. No, you don't want to change it. And that's the end of it. We want the people to learn and know some of what is inside that document and how it affects us. As of today, date that I'm having this discussion on this particular 113th show, see how far we have come? 113 of these shows. We have done more education about our Constitution to our Belizean general public at home and abroad than the PCC has done, with all the millions of dollars that they have spent already. And most of the time when they go around to these meetings that they're having, they're not actually teaching people any of the fundamental things them of the law. All they're doing is running a shenanigan on the people. And even when people want to ask questions that's relevant to their own personal experience in life, they want to browbeat the people them and dismiss them on there. And they don't have enough time to do the work that they need to do, that they're hoping to do. No, as a matter of fact, then don't stop now, I think, already, the educational part of the program. Now they're going to another phase. They're just going through the motions to arrive at an end agenda that is already established and set out. And when they complete what they're doing, their exercise, they're going to turn that over to the PM, and the PM will decide between himself and cabinet what they want to take to the House for the House to vote on if they want to make any major changes. And if they don't want to make any major changes, there may not be a referendum as is stipulated in the PCC Act. The government has written in that act an escape clause that in case the stuff is not substantive enough, they may just take it to Congress, vote on it, and forget about a referendum. As a matter of fact, I can almost say to you, the general public right now, based on the present government track record of not honoring referendums, it's very likely that they will skedaddle their way out of this potential referendum if and when that time comes. I could be wrong, but so far, if any of you want to prove that I may have been wrong before, during the course of this last 113th show, review the shows then. Come back now in the light of hindsight and validate for yourself and see how many of what we said in those shows has become reality. So we weren't talking off the top of our head, we're just talking because we have on pure lips. We were committed wholeheartedly to what we were doing. And as a result, the end result speaks for itself. Most of what we have spoken to and clamor about, argued about, and did whatever manner of effort we expended as an entity under the banner of the Belize Affairs show. We have had response and outcome, positive outcomes far beyond what we should have had. Because we are not any political entity. We are not a mass party. We're not none of the things that control any of the levers of government. But we embarrass them but to the point that they get shame and then turn around and then do some of the things that we advocate, not to please us, but to show that they're competent, capable, and that sometimes what we are advocating is what they're actually trying to get done. More power to them. All we want is the best interest of our country and for them to respond positively to the needs of our country. It's not like we're going to go run for no office and take over the government from them. They're the politicians. They're the one elected. All we want is demand accountability, fairness, and good governance from them. And we want to stop waste we time and we government treasury. If they go make bogus law and spend money, what we don't have. And whatever money we have, spend it on the people's needs and services. But if anybody think I'm just talking because I feel like talk, go back and check the shows now. Get your belly full of laugh after what we were saying, and then in the first shows them, and later on as time went by, you get a little bit more serious in recognizing the seriousness of the issues and the successes we have had over that period of time. I don't have to wait for nobody pat me on the back to tell me, "Ada boy, you did a good job," or whatever. That's not what it's all about. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for results. As a matter of fact, for right now, I was just finished reading this little piece of the thing where I'm a sub read because I was getting personal. I have a tendency every once in a while to become personal when I talk about these things because these are the things that ails me. Okay, it makes me mad, and I know better could be had, but these people just choose not to do better because they just feel like not do better. They just wishy washy, you know. I get back to that state of intolerance and personalizing stuff. Like I drop out of that and come back to read the last part of this thing what I read before. So I was just indicating that the particular program, we have 112 of them already so far. And usually I have these programs on Mondays and Wednesdays and Fridays at 7:30 p.m. Belize times on Facebook and on YouTube with Belizean panelists Mr. Leonard, Brackett, myself, and Mr. Gregory, Brackett, and Mr. Roody Wade, as well as many other endeavors. And like I said, we have other special guests who comes in once in a while. We have like Miss Pitts, a regular guest. We also have Mr. Gregory Morrison, another regular guest. We have special guests, one Mr. Tyndall that came in to visit us during the discussions on the Belize Mayan land issue. I don't call it a right, it's an issue. If you want to have a debate with me over that, we could. We have had a lot of discussions on this program before, but I have my own personal perspective, and I'm not trying to jam it down nobody's throat. But I have a reason why I use the words that I use when I discuss certain topics or certain issues. The Mayan community, some of the people in the Mayan community, by the way, not all of them. Let's clarify that up front. Some of the people are trying to bamboozle and use and conflate any and every opportunity that they get to try and justify what, in my mind, I think is an unreasonable and untenable position. From their vantage point, they may probably think that the same thing goes for them. That is that I am having a perspective that is also unreasonable and maybe untenable for them as well. So I mean, they're all entitled, as every one of us are entitled to our own ideas, own opinions, and own conclusions, right? But at the end of the day, I think that the Mayan land issue could have been settled and should have been settled without all the level of acrimony that it generated over these 20 odd years plus. Because this thing just to blow up in public, but it's been going on long before Mr. Musa went down there the first time. When he went down there the first time, it's because the matter was blowing up somewhat. Before then, there were other people down there, you know, before 2000, from 1990 odd, I would say, there were people who were trying to tackle this particular problem or issue. And it just became worse and worse and worse, all because of negligence on the part of the people who we entrust our governance to. They never started out being honest and fair and upfront with the Maya community. They led them on, they mislead them, as a matter of fact. They made promises to them, as a matter of fact. Some of those promises, under our current law of the country, could not be sustained. And under the present governance system that we have, could not be entertained. But yet, for political purposes, all these discussions were being had behind the scene, and these people were being encouraged to disgorge the rest of the society and the country of more and more and more lands, basically for all intents and purposes. Let me say it like this. What was going on is that they were encouraging these people to reverse the tide that led to Belize being the Belize that we now know today. I don't know if I overspoke just now, or I said what I said too what are the term now? Anyhow, in other words, sometimes when I say certain things, I try to say it in such a way as to cover all bases, because you want to get flack, right, left, and center. There's always going to be people who disagree with what you have to say. No care how good you try to say it or how you try to say it to not cause controversy. Not everybody is 100% in favor of nothing. So, for all intents and purposes, like I was trying to intimate earlier, this matter could have been settled long before now. And because it wasn't settled long before now, it is now becoming an albatross and a more serious and bigger problem and harder problem to settle or solve than it had to turn out to be. Because initially, the Maya community was only asking for a recognition of the lands that they have under a different title than what the government normally offers lands within the present government land department structure and documentation process. All the people, or some of the people, because remember, I shouldn't be using the word all when I speak of the Mayan community, because like any other community, not everybody is one and the same. So I need to always check myself and remember to qualify when I make these statements. So that's the reason why I stop and I try to qualify. Some of the people that started out this thing originally, they had a good thing going with consulting with all the other members of the communities in that area. At that time, we didn't have that many Guatemalan Quiche Mayans in Belize, who are the very aggressive ones who have turned the whole effort that Mr. Musa and others, even up to today yet, have been trying to put in place or deal with or resolve. They come from Guatemala with a warlike mentality, having been abused, disabused, and mistreated by the country of Guatemala and its military and leadership. And they come over to Belize proper for refuge, got the refuge, the support, and the solace required in order for them to be able to settle down and enjoy and stay among us, the Belizeans. And when I'm saying Belizeans, in that particular statement, I'm also including the Belizean Mayans that have customarily existed in the framework of the boundaries of Belize as a country. We have never ever had this level of acrimony and back and forward and with our local Mayans. Yes, I can recall that in some instances the government and some shicerous people kind of they sell some lands that these Mayan community here in our country were using and would have liked to use, particularly to foreign investors. You have real estate companies in our country that size up and look out for opportunities for foreign investors. And they come in and buy up all these big tracts of land. And the Mayan people were being shut out of their own possibilities to acquire and or to make use of some of those lands. And that's what triggered the whole of this acrimonious stuff. But by the time you get to where that happened, enough of the Kichen Mayans were already living with our local Belizean Mayans, them, as I said, for refuge. And they got involved. And they're the one that stirred up this vexing acrimony. That, oh, well, the Mayans as a community have been here in Central America, Guatemala, Honduras, Salvador, Belize, and Mexico. That's a fact. That's historically a fact. But it is also historically a fact that the Mayans as a community were a warlike group of people who were always warring against each other. Nobody can deny that. Which is why we have so many ruins all over Central America. Well, I shouldn't say all of Central, but I mean in part of Honduras, part of Salvador, part of Guatemala, all of Guatemala, I should say, and for all intents and purposes, all of Belize and parts of Mexico. But before the Mayans, they conquered somebody else that was on those territories. Anybody who learn and study and know enough about the Mayan history should be able to tell you that the ancient Mayan had their references as to where their forefathers originated from. And they always point to the east, which is to tell you that those that came from the east came on the seas. Okay? Our program is past the time, but I was getting into this Mayan thing. Let me do another 2 or 3 minutes to close and then close it off. I'm going to go beyond our time a little bit more, just so I can get a little chance to close up the thought, no? And we'll deal with the subject matter on some other occasion. But the Mayan who know their true history can tell you that their forefathers came from the east. There were people in this area of the hemisphere long before the Mayan became an emperor. Thousands of years before they became an emperor. They came and they conquered and colonized other people that existed in these territories before them. So when the current Mayans them in Belize, in southern Belize, are intimating that they were here before the Creole, the Garifuna, the Mestizos, and the Spanish, and the English, and all other newcomers, it is true they were here before, before all these newcomers. But they fail to remember and tell you that there are others who were here before they came by and created an empire and conquered all these bits and pieces of place and fought and killed up each other. That's the history that they need to also point out to you, so that they can be sensitized to the reality that they can't be claiming about who was here first and who wasn't here and all that kind of stuff as a basis for turning over the apple cart that we have today. What we need to do is be magnanimous enough, recognize all the potential realities, and live and let live and accommodate each other and stop the pick on each other and bastardizing each other's culture and denigrating or talking down to each other and pretend that we are the new colonialists. In other words, the Mayans, they were colonialists at one point in history. The Belizeans, the people them were colonialists. They depended on the colonial powers of England to keep them safe away from Guatemala and from Spain. Now, with these roads that we see being built in the Chiquibul by the Guatemalans, them, they're not supposed to be doing that. But then the Mayans want to have what you call autonomy. And then who is going to defend that territory on behalf of the country of Belize? The Mayans are not going to be able to stand up and fight against the Guatemalan them. They won't be able to stop them from building the roads like what they just built the other day. We, the Belizean government currently, are just becoming aware of the fact that those roads were being built. Like I said, we're beyond our time, and I just need to close it up. So we have a lot to talk about and a lot of sensitization to do, a lot of educating to do. And like I said, our show is not like the regular platforms that people just get on the show, talk with each other or among each other, banter with each other, have a fine time, and just, be an apologist for the government or be an apologist for the opposition or be an apologist for whoever or whatever. This show is about helping our Belizeans to become better stewards of our country. And only if you know what the facts are, only if you know what goes on behind the scene, will you be able to know how to relate to and how to deal with things on a timely basis. And that's why we don't indulge on this show too much bantering or too much grandstanding or too much, there are many other shows that could do that or would do that, or have people calling in and making statements that may or may not be true, or making arguments or taking up the airtime or the time of the show to just be controversial or just be mischievous or just be, we don't have enough time based on the schedules for all these things that the government is trying to do and not do for us to be able to, banter around. So this particular show format is one of acquiring knowledge, dispersing knowledge, education, educate, and hopefully people will be able to help themselves, save themselves. We can't save the people, but we can provide a platform of advocacy on what ails our country, and that's what this platform is all about. Thank you again, Belizeans at home and abroad, for having tuned in, and thank you to those who will be tuning in after, as they always do. And we're just glad to have the privilege to participate in this process. God bless Belize and Belizeans at home and abroad. Good night.